Hello girls, let's talk about the work for period 4. You're going to be reading the prologue from Frank Walker's Maralinga, so Frank Walker, journalist and historian, and you're going to classify at least 6 statements in that prologue, a fairly short piece of writing, that you consider to be most important as fact or opinion. So, most important, things that you think are significant, interesting statements. You select them. There will be no wrong response there. Select statements and categorize them as fact or opinion. In addition, you'll be writing a brief explanation for your classification of each statement. I've given you a landscaped table that you can copy. Do your work on that table, then submit it. And I've got examples of what to do on that table. So let's take a look at everything that's included. First of all, Frank Walker's prologue. Let's read some of this and decide whether we think that certain statements are fact. Okay, a factual statement is not disputed. So people are in general agreement about facts. They can be tested, they can be corroborated, which means they can be checked. There is no dispute or argument about a fact. An opinion, well, an opinion is an interpretation, it's a perspective, it's open to dispute or disagreement. So opinions are not facts. Okay. The nuclear scientist who fired the world's first atomic bomb, Ernest Titterton, peered around at the scientists and officials seated in the boardroom of the UK Atomic Energy Research Establishment. It was a bright spring morning in 1957 and they were all there to hear Titterton deliver an edict on where they should go next. They had already exploded 9 atomic bombs in Australia and taken thousands of measurements at the blast sites at the Montebello Islands off Western Australia, as well as Emu Field and Maralinga in Central Australia. Okay, what's going on here in terms of fact and opinion? So most of this information is factual. So these facts, we can categorize them as facts because they can be easily verified or checked. Ernest Titterton attended a meeting at the boardroom of the UK Atomic Energy Research Establishment in 1957 and made an announcement about the next steps in nuclear testing in Australia. That's a fact. Up until that point in time, they had already exploded 9 atomic bombs in Australia. Fact. They had taken thousands of measurements at the blast sites. Fact. And it tells us where. So the measurements would have been about the impact of testing of nuclear explosions on bodies, on human bodies. They had dummies made up to mimic human bodies, and also on property. That's all factual. The only thing that isn't entirely factual, we've got Ernest Titterton peering around at the scientists and officials. So peering suggests that he's examining them closely. This is where we've got Frank Walker telling a bit of a story. He talks about Ernest Titterton peering around at the table. Look, we won't worry about that, but I'm simply taking a close look at the language here. Okay, let's go into page 2. File number DEFE 16/808 exposes in chilling scientific language that the agenda of the British on that bright sunny spring day was to turn the whole of Australia into one giant nuclear laboratory. They wanted to use the Australian population as human guinea pigs for decades to come. What's fact and what's opinion here? Okay, there's a file labelled DEFE 16/808 that reveals the purpose of the meeting. That's a fact that could be verified, that could be checked. I want you to note, however, the phrase chilling scientific language. Chilling is an opinion word. It's suggesting scary, horrific, isn't it? It's actually implying that that document dehumanized the people who would be impacted on by the testing in Australia. So chilling is suggesting a lack of compassion, a lack of care for the human beings that were going to be affected. This idea that Australia was being turned into a nuclear laboratory, that's using a comparison to suggest again that the human beings in Australia were being dehumanized. Their dignity as human beings was not being respected, and they were being treated like objects in an experiment. So here we've got a good example of opinion. Now, the examples that I have given in my explanation, girls, you are free to include those in your own. Okay, here's the landscape document. Fact versus opinion. So I've got some facts listed here. We've got some opinion. Well, we've got an opinion and interpretation. And I've already spoken about other opinions evident. So if we go back to the actual task. Okay, so you read the prologue carefully. You're going to copy the landscaped table, look at the examples, then add to those examples and submit that work at the end of the lesson. I don't want any delay in submission, girls. There is plenty of time, too much time. You'll have time left over, and good for you. Enjoy that time. But there is plenty of time for you to do the work and submit by the end of the lesson. And I thank you so much for your cooperation, and I hope you have a lovely lesson. Bye for now.